We are in the Museum of Modern Art of the city of Paris, and I'm standing in front of Raoul Dufy's The Tale of Electricity from 1937. It is one of the largest frescoes of modern time, and it is about 60 meters long, 10 meters high, covering a surface of 600 square meters or some 6,000 square foot. I myself have no particular interest in frescoes, except for the fact that frescoes like monuments, obelisks, memorial plaques, and in recent time photography are the historical media to convey very important messages and to shape our mind. Here is the tale of electricity, and it's an epopee of development of electrical science, and we find some 110 scientists who contributed to its making. We find all of them but one, the man who invented it, Nikola Tesla. Most of these men, in comparison to Tesla, who was the real visionary, are the men of one dimension only. But in fact, who is Tesla? Most important things in one's life do happen by pure coincidence or by chance. I knew about Tesla all my life, and really to be interested and to know about not the full extent, but to extend my personal knowledge about this great inventor happened in New York in, I think, about 89. There was a gentleman who was distributing a leaflet on Broadway, and just for the reason that this gentleman looked like a banker from the Wall Street was giving the leaflet, I read carefully what was on it. And they were saying, please don't miss the movie about Tesla on Channel 13 tomorrow afternoon. So I went to see that movie, and then the same evening I bought a couple of books which I read breathlessly the whole night, and ever since then I followed even more. Tesla's example is very interesting for me because it touches the fundamental question of my work, and that is perception and the perception of the novelty. It is a philosophical question. The second question is a social one, and the third is of a psychological nature. So all these elements made me think to what extent certain ideas can be absorbed or accepted in society in a given moment. And we find, following the Tesla's path, different periods of his life when he was one of the most established New Yorkers, belonging to maybe top 100, and then to decline, which is due to changes in society, and also Tesla going further and further in his explorations, and probably touching some of the social utopia. Shortly after I read, especially I recall the details from Margaret Cheney's book, which is a wonderful example of a woman scientist who is also a very gifted writer. To my hands came a script, a movie script, which was written for Warner Brothers in Hollywood, about Tesla, and this movie script was destined first to George Lucas and then to Alfonso Cuarón. He came to look for me in connection with the story about two artists, which I wrote when I was 18, and the story about two artists is that once upon a time, far away from cities and towns, lived two artists, and king hunting nearby lost his dog, and he found the dog in the garden of one of the two painters. He saw the work of that painter, invited him to the castle, and the name of that painter became Leonardo da Vinci, and the other one disappeared from human memory. This story is obviously a fiction, which Alfonso Cuarón wanted to integrate in his movie Great Expectation, based on Dickens, but in the middle of the movie, which is with Gwyneth Paltrow and Robert De Niro, there is somebody telling this story, and this story is really, although being a fiction, it's somehow very indicative of what happens in lives of advanced thinkers, whether they are painters, artists, or creators of different kind. And in Tesla's life we find both kind of artists from my story, because at one time, around 1900, he was Leonardo da Vinci living in Waldorf Astoria. And towards the end of his life, when he died in the New Yorker hotel, he was the other one who disappeared and fallen into a complete oblivion. Brothers script about Tesla. One of the main characters is obviously Mark Twain, who was his close friend, and one of the great privileges of the New York high society around 1900 or even before was to go after Waldorf Astoria dinners to Tesla's laboratory in Bleecker Street, where Tesla would demonstrate some of his machines and experiments, and all this mundane society happened to speak about these wonderful inventions, which had also some kind of visual art components, because Tesla would show them for instance, wireless neon light burning in his hand, or other kind of light bulbs, wireless, showing a certain amount of light. But one of the great things that he would do was also to write with the neon red light tube the name of his favorite poet, and one of them was Belgrade or Serbian writer Zmaj. So this is one of the models from the 1892, and I think that many great artworks were inspired by this Tesla's invention, and also by the photographs that are published at the time when he made it and many years later. The fact and these photographs made me think that Tesla not only made an influence, tremendous influence on the scientific world, but he also made great impact on the visual arts people who in the course of 60s and 70s happened to know a little bit more about him. And in this case, when I mentioned this as my poet's name written in different neon color, it makes me think of some Arte Povera work or some works of Bruce Neumann, who is one of the greatest American artists. When I was speaking about Tesla's influence on the art world, I think the first generation that was really influenced by Tesla was Dadaist movement, and especially people like Marcel Duchamp and Francis Picabia. The first time when this idea came to my mind that there was a link between Tesla and the Dadaists was in the Guggenheim Museum when I made one installation with Picabia's painting, and where all the elements painted are reminding me on Tesla's coil and other elements from Tesla engines, like for instance from this electro motor that he created in 1888. And also given the fact that Tesla was one of the most mundane people of that time in the world, and that Picabia was also a great fan of sports cars, and Duchamp great fan of a kind of tailors, made clothes like Tesla. I think that when they came to New York, they heard about Tesla, came greatly interested in Tesla's work, and I think some elements of Tesla's drawing and his inventions you can see in the large glass which is in Philadelphia Museum and also at the Tate Gallery in London. The fact that really maybe 15, 20 years ago, apart from some artists who are always first to talk about a certain subject, the fact that Tesla was a kind of complete stranger in public life and media life made me think also connected with Malevich and Kafka and Greco and some other historic figures, or Ben Akiba or Akiba Ben. I started formulating this problem, and I named this problem genius side. And opposite to genocide, which is addressed to entire nations or population, genocide is a very silent crime that happens in the gap of misunderstanding between creative individual and the society. And I must say that I'm very glad now to see that, for instance, Tesla was given a street in New York, that many artists do kind of homage pieces to him. And I recall also one situation in Israel Museum in Jerusalem in '93 for my solo show with Tesla, Kafka, Malevich and Modigliani. There were some artists that I who, like Bill Viola, was one of the rare people to recognize Tesla's face. What is extremely important to me is also one of the Teslas being a very last scientist who work more or less with artistic methods, meaning that he never made a kind of long-going calculations on the paper and drawings. He would be just constructing, and in that way he is similar to Leonardo da Vinci. And he liked to play with visual arts. I think this was a part for him of cosmic harmony. And another generation that was deeply influenced by Tesla is, for instance, a world of kinetic art. And for instance, this machine, also from the end of the 19th century, it has a witty title, Tesla's Egg of Columbus. This is Tesla's Columbus egg from 1890, and it was one of a beautiful visual presentation of magnetic field. The peak of Tesla's kind of fame was in 1899 when he constructed the dam of the Niagara Falls, and we here have a kind of model the way the AC current, alternative current operates, which is one of the greatest inventions of modern time and Tesla's invention. Not only the Tesla had a hard time of finding people who would finance his things, but Edison was the guy who was saying that alternative current is very dangerous, and Edison himself was for DC, which didn't have a great future in the modern world because simply it was not being able to be transported at the long distances as Tesla's alternative current. One of the kind of dark sides of this kind of competition for the vision of these two men was that the origins of electric chair lay in the fact that Edison, to demonstrate that Tesla's alternative current wouldn't work, offered his services to a prison, I can't remember, was it Sing Sing or another prison, where he constructed the electric chair to show how the alternative current that we use today and will be using still in many years in the future is dangerous. So he helped in electrocuting men, and it was serving as an example of the danger of alternative current. This machine is Tesla's coil with an output of 500,000 volts. We have just seen the first wireless transmission of electric energy, and we know that Tesla invented a wireless system And so in the same year of 1892, he even demonstrated in the Central Park on the lake his speedboat and the submarine with remote control. I remember with great pleasure, sometimes in January of year 2000, being in New York, reading in the New York Times that they named 10 great inventors or personalities of the 20th century, and for instance they said Enrico Fermi, split atom, and then Albert Einstein made his theory of relativity, and for Tesla there was so much that they said simply the man who invented 20th century. This is one more fascinating invention by Tesla from 1892 and 1898 as well, where he demonstrated to New Yorkers his remote control ship and the submarine. And the second part of this genius invention is this transmitter, which is just behind me. Tesla was in the paper and in the media all the time, because even those who didn't understand the kind of scientific level of his work, they did find always amusing his experiments, and thanks to the fact that a large public liked to assist to his experiments, I saw also this silent movie from 1898 about Tesla playing in the Central Park lake with this vessel. One of the things which is puzzling my mind is that actually the social climate in those years started changing, because I think discrepancy between common knowledge and the Tesla genius became wider and wider, and especially it refers to when he starts talking and advocating wireless transmission of the high voltage electricity. I think one of the reasons for that is the fact that the people who were interested, like Westinghouse or JP Morgan, to partly finance like Niagara Falls or other projects, that suddenly they realize if there was wireless transmission of the high voltage electricity, which would be transmitted from one continent to another or from one side of the world to another, that they didn't know how would they really pay back what they invested, and how would they really, I mean, in banal words, cash on this Tesla's invention. The photograph is showing the Long Island Tower for transmission of wireless electricity, and somehow it is beginning. It was never accomplished because of this kind of financial, ideological reasons, and I think it is the beginning of Tesla's decline as a kind of public figure, because all the funds were withdrawn, and he himself being potentially the richest man in the world, because he had a contract after Niagara Falls to to get 1 cent from each kilowatt of electric current consumed on the earth. And he simply destroyed this contract because some people on the Wall Street said that world economy should not depend on one man, and Tesla was never interested in this financial side. So even he destroyed the contract and the check of 18 million, which he was kind of kindly given by his investors. But I think there is another thing when it comes to talk about the zeitgeist or spirit of the time, and that is that idea of leftism, of socialism and communism is appearing more or less at the same time when Tesla wanted to give free of charge electricity to everyone on this planet. And this is really a kind of interesting social or sociological and philosophical point that I'm interested in my art, because some 15, 16 years ago in the Museum of Modern Art in Paris, I was asked to choose one work and to speak about it, and idea was to interpret one work with the eyes of contemporary artists. So I did choose for the first part of this lecture Raoul Dufy's fresco, Fairy Tale of Electricity. You can see everybody from Vogt and Volta and many other prominent scientists, and you don't see Tesla. And my lecture was named La peinture ou fresque, la vérité ou presque, meaning, or translated in English, which doesn't rhyme, painting ou fresco, the truth or almost the truth. And for many people in the audience, they thought, knowing my works with anonymous passers-by or casual passers-by, that I was really inventing this personality who was not appearing in this fresco. And luckily I had Margaret Cheney book and I showed it to them, and then I pulled out under the table a small Chagall painting saying really it's not a monumental that interested me, and it is really this good little painting which is conveying artistic messages. With this fresco, it was, I don't know for how long I was thinking about this fresco and similar examples from history, general history and art history, and it came to my mind in 1968 after the student riots to say that there are no mistakes in history, that whole of history is a mistake, that history pretending to be a science, the only impressionist science written by those who have only one thing to say or to observe the things from a certain point of view. And I wrote in 1976 and published a book called Tractatus Posthistoricus, like post-historical treaty, where I start to talk about pluralism of truth, and starting 6-7 years before Charles Jenks used the term of postmodernism, and I simply introduced the model of multi-angular viewing and plurality of truth and the coexistence of different interpretations, different models and different concepts. So Tesla is one of the, with El Greco and Daumier or some great painters, a fantastic example of this misunderstanding between creative individual and the society. And when I was invited for the reception by Swedish Academy for the Nobel Prize of Dario Fo, Prior to this visit to Stockholm, I asked an appointment in Swedish Academy to see the Tesla file, because around 1922 or 23 there was an article, or there was a leak of information that Tesla and Edison were nominated for Nobel Prize, and then there was a total silence, and apparently Tesla, according to some sources, said, I'm not interested to share this prize with small technician, and obviously for such a great visionary it was not an arrogant statement, it was just a simple constatation. And to my mind, completely justified. I remember on the day when Dario Fo was receiving this Nobel Prize, which was a wonderful event in itself, I had the meeting with the 3 academicians in Stockholm, and I said, could I see the file, and I would like to know, just as a matter of curiosity and as a simple citizen, if I could see if it's true that this prize, which was never given in that year, was really kind of destined to be shared between Tesla and Edison. And they said, unfortunately, our rules are that 80 academicians will have to sign and to be totally agreeing with the fact that you see the nomination of that particular year when New York Times wrote that Tesla was a Nobel candidate, and refused for the fact of being a proud name. From these 110 figures and names represented in this fresco, there are only 5 scientists who were given the units after their name. It is Volta, Watt, Faraday, Ohm, and Tesla. He was even given a street in New York in the last decade. So, if we didn't know about Tesla for 100 years, and if we ignored El Greco for 3 centuries, I'm asking myself, whose 3 centuries are running now? Marconi got a Nobel Prize in 1909 at Tesla's expense. Some Tesla fans in 1943 sued Marconi, and he lost the case because for the radio invention, because US Supreme Court ruled in the Tesla's favor. There is probably no better place on the earth than here to prove my thought from 1968 that there are no mistakes in history, that whole of history is a mistake. History is a mutilated image of the past. History is represented by kitsch, post-history or real life by art. Here is a good place to ask, how is it possible that one of the greatest inventors and scientists contributing so much to the field of electricity is simply missing from this gallery of portraits? It reminds me on a story I've written some time ago, that on the outskirts of the city there was a man who was doing something, and he was totally enigmatic to other citizens. Some of them were thinking that he is kind of digging a tunnel. Some of them were thinking that he's kind of building some structure to bring some electricity right to the top of that hill. And some of them were even seeing the details of a human body. Nobody really realized what he was doing, and when the man passed away, some people came from far away and realized that he's really done a very big error. So my question is, here all they are, from Volta, Watt, Faraday, even Edison or Marconi. Was Tesla simply too big to fit into this fresco?